Today we're going to talk about worms, simple worms. Why don't you write this down? The worms we're going to talk about are invertebrates with bilateral symmetry. So no backbone, and you can cut them down the middle, you can fold them down the middle. There is a head and a tail, a rear end, so you can't cut them in half, but you cut them down the middle, one way. 3 types of worms. Go ahead and write this down. If I'm going too fast, you can always pause. You don't have to write these yet. But 3 types of worms: flatworms, roundworms, and segmented worms. Okay? So, 3 types of worms. The first one, I'd like you to write this down. It's a big, weird, fancy word there. Platyhelminths. It's a weird phylum here. An example of it, and I'd write this down, flatworms. It's kind of the fancy word for flatworms. I'd write this down. Have flattened bodies. Most are parasites. Most live in salt water. By parasite, what that means is it feeds off a host. It feeds off of host. So, like if you have a heartworm, if your dog, you might give them a little chewy thing to keep them from having heartworm, little worms that get in their blood, that feed on their blood. That's a parasite. It gives nothing and it takes. Okay, if you've ever had a tick attached to you, that's a parasite. It's sucking your blood and it's giving you nothing. Fleas, those are all parasites. So flatworms are mostly parasites. Why don't you write down one of these examples? I'd write down a tapeworm. That's a good example. If you get a tapeworm, what happens? So if you get like a pork tapeworm, for instance, okay, when you eat, let's say I'm making a pork chop, and if I cook that pork chop all the way through, it'll kill anything that's in that pork. Okay, but let's say I don't cook it quite enough and it's pink inside, and I eat it, and there's some eggs from a pork tapeworm. Okay, they're going to get into my stomach, into my small intestine, they're going to hatch, they're going to attach into my small intestine, and basically they're going to feed on my digested food. If you are, it's kind of an old saying, if you're, maybe you're a skinny little guy and you eat like tons and tons and tons and you don't gain an ounce, they might say you have a tapeworm, meaning the worm is stealing all of the calories, all of the nutrition. Animals can get this. I've heard some like crazy dieting people that actually will intentionally swallow a pork tapeworm. So they can eat whatever they want and the worm will take most of the calories. That's not a good way to lose weight though. I'd write this down. I'd write this down. Planarians, not parasites. They have 2 eye spots, which instead of seeing, it's more like a light sensor. Live in fresh water. Have cilia, which is little finger-like things that help them move. Pretty short, and they can reproduce sexually and asexually. Then tapeworms, like I was kind of saying, they are parasites. I'd write this down. They have hooks or suckers on their mouth. You see that picture there? That is a zoomed in, magnified picture. They'll hook into your intestine and basically slurp up all of your digested food. So they don't even digest it themselves. They let you do it. And they can grow super, super long. I'd write this down. Roundworms are another type. They can live on water and land. Some can be parasites. They use sexual reproduction. An example that you're probably have heard the most of is heartworm. Okay, your dog can get heartworm. There's other ones, Trichinella, Ascaris. Some worms in the stomach there. So if I went too fast, you could always pause or go back. There we go.